Dead America. Tales from the Outer Banks. The Rescue Part 2 by Derek Slayton. Chapter 1. Day 0 plus 5. The sun was barely above the horizon as Officer Bowman drove down to the docks. Despite turning in early the previous evening, he felt anything but rested. His mind spent the majority of the night running through every aspect of the plan. While they had been successful in blocking off the northern bridge on Bodie Island, a seemingly never-ending list of tasks remained before they could feel truly safe. Warm rays of morning light streaked across his windshield, momentarily blinding him as he navigated a curve in the road. The brightness only highlighted his exhaustion, forcing him to squint against the glare. He rubbed his bloodshot eyes with one hand, trying to focus on the road ahead. The constant loop of planning, problem-solving, and worst-case scenarios had kept him tossing and turning all night. Every time he closed his eyes, his brain conjured images of barricades failing or zombies breaching their defenses. Even in his brief moments of sleep, the nightmares persisted, grasping hands, vacant eyes, and the constant, relentless moaning of the dead. His patrol car rolled steadily over the uneven asphalt, the vehicle's suspension groaning in protest at each pothole. With each passing day, maintenance became a larger concern. Soon enough, basic supplies like motor oil and spare tires would become as valuable as ammunition, another item to add to his mental checklist. Bowman made the turn into the dock parking lot, spotting a handful of people milling about. Henry and Linda were passing out care packages, undoubtedly filled with food. Matt and Anthony sat on the tailgate of a pickup truck, having a cup of coffee and breakfast sandwich. The normalcy of the scene was almost jarring, as if they were just preparing for a day of fishing rather than a military-style assault on the undead. The officer's eyes shifted to the left, where Jackson, Nathan, and Brandon were gearing up for an assault. All three men were checking their weapons, rifles and handguns, while securing more ammunition to their vests. Their faces were set with determination, their movements practiced and efficient. They'd come a long way from the frightened civilians they'd been just days ago. Bowman pulled up beside them, cutting the engine and hopping out. The morning air was cool against his skin, carrying the familiar scents of salt water and diesel fuel from the boats. Before acknowledging them, he threw open the back door of his car, grabbing an assault rifle and a bag of ammunition, slinging it over his shoulder. The weight was comforting, a reminder that they weren't going in unprepared. Jackson looked up at the sound of the car door slamming, a grin spreading across his face. "There he is," Jackson called out. "I was wondering when you were going to show up." "Sorry, I didn't get much sleep last night," Bowman replied. "Tell me about it." "Something about the excitement of the day just made it impossible to rest," Jackson said. Nathan glanced up from his own preparations. "Excitement of the day? You do know what we're doing, right?" Jackson grinned. "Yep, and the sooner we get it done, the sooner I can prop my feet up and grab a tall drink with a tiny umbrella in it." Nathan glanced over to Brandon, who responded with a "he's right" shrug. As the four of them continued getting their gear ready, the others walked over to them. "Good morning, officer. I got a care package for you," Linda said. Bowman grabbed the brown paper sack, looking inside to find a fresh-baked muffin, along with a bottle of water and some pre-packaged chips. "Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it," Bowman said. "It's the least I could do," Linda replied. "Were you able to get a hold of our friends out on the water?" Bowman asked. Linda smiled and nodded, handing Bowman the radio. "They're just waiting on your call," Linda assured him. Bowman nodded and took the radio, clicking the talk button and speaking. The plastic was warm against his fingers, either from sitting in the sun or from recent use. "Good morning out there, this is Bowman," he announced. A moment of static followed before a cheerful female voice responded. "Good morning, Bowman, this is Violet. Nixon and I are ready to do whatever you need us to do." "Are you still near the pier?" Bowman asked. "We are," Violet confirmed. "Good, hang tight, we'll be over to you soon," Bowman instructed. "Do you want me to get the others over here too?" Violet asked. "Another boat couldn't hurt, but if you want to tell the others to start making their way to the southern bridge, that would be great." "Consider it done. We'll see you soon," Violet replied. Bowman clicked off the radio, handing it back to Linda. She nodded and took a step back as Anthony and Matt walked over. Both men looked ready for action, despite the coffee cups still in their hands. Matt had a smudge of grease on his forearm, suggesting he'd already been working on the vehicles that morning. "Are you boys ready to roll out?" Bowman asked. Anthony straightened up. "We will be once everyone is in position. I got a team up at the barricade getting it prepped to be moved," Matt added. "And the trucks?" Bowman pressed. "3 of them gassed up, well-stocked, and ready to go kick some ass. We also have half a dozen pickups ready to go too," Anthony replied. Bowman nodded. "Good deal. We're going to be on Channel 12. We'll let you know when it's time to come pick up the arsenal." Anthony and Matt both extended their fists for a bump, which Bowman did, after which the officer turned to his squad, giving them a wave. "Let's get ready to head out, boys," Bowman called. Jackson, Brandon, and Nathan nodded as they joined Bowman walking down the docks to their boat. The 3 men glanced back to the others, exchanging waves with them as they went. The dock creaked beneath their combined weight as they made their way to the end, where their boat was moored. The vessel bobbed gently in the water, secured by thick ropes to the cleats on the dock. Seagulls circled overhead, their cries piercing the morning air. After a few moments, they boarded the mid-sized fishing boat. It stood 20 feet long, and if it sat on the ground, about 8 feet high. While there were larger ones at the dock, this one suited their needs the best. Bowman got behind the controls, firing up the engine before carefully backing it out. The motor rumbled to life, vibrating through the deck beneath their feet. Once turned, he went full throttle, picking up speed towards the bay. The bow of the boat sliced through the water, spraying a fine mist into the air that caught the morning sunlight. The other 3 men sat in the back, staying quiet and just enjoying the warmth of the sun as the sea mist hit them. Despite the mission ahead, there was something peaceful about being on the water. The constant threat that loomed on land seemed distant out here, where the undead couldn't follow. It took the better part of 15 minutes for them to get through the bay and into the open ocean waters. The landscape changed subtly, the protected waters of the bay giving way to the greater vastness of the Atlantic. The waves were larger here, causing the boat to rise and fall in a steady rhythm that tested their sea legs. As they moved along the coastline, about half a mile out, they passed a handful of boats that were lining up just offshore. A few survivors on the decks waved at them, receiving the same in return. Bowman noted with satisfaction that people were following through on the plan. The more boats they had creating noise diversions, the better their chances of success. Nathan leaned forward, tapping Jackson on the shoulder and pointing toward the shore. "Check it out." Jackson squinted against the glare of the sun on the water, following Nathan's finger to a section of beach. Several zombies wandered aimlessly along the sand, their movements slow and uncoordinated. From this distance, they looked almost harmless, like confused tourists who'd lost their way. "They're definitely slowing down," Brandon observed, his voice carrying a note of cautious optimism. "Let's just hope the ones in town are doing the same," Bowman replied, not taking his eyes off the water ahead. Bowman kept his focus ahead, spotting the pier in the distance. Its wooden structure jutted out into the ocean, a man-made peninsula that had once been crowded with tourists and fishermen. Now it stood empty, save for the occasional shuffling figure that had wandered out onto it. After another few minutes, they spotted a couple of boats sitting together in the water. Their white hulls gleamed in the morning sun, bobbing gently with the waves. As they approached, Bowman could make out figures on the decks, watching their arrival. Bowman slowed down, pulling alongside the boats before stopping entirely. The engine idled down to a low rumble, allowing conversation without shouting. As they bobbed in the water, 2 couples came out from the control decks of both boats. They looked young, probably in their 20s, with the weathered appearance of people who'd been living on the water for several days. "Which one of you is Violet?" Bowman called out. A young woman's hand shot up in the air like she was excited to answer a question in class. Nixon chuckled, grabbing her arm and gently pulling it down. "Sorry, I get excited sometimes," Violet said. "I'm Violet, and this is my friend Nixon. You must be Officer Bowman." As Bowman nodded, the other younger-looking couple perked up. The man took a step forward, speaking with a hint of confusion. "Officer Bowman? Jennifer's ex-boyfriend?" Parker asked. Bowman recoiled a little bit, not expecting to hear her name spoken. "Yeah, how in the hell did you know that?" Bowman asked. "Because we worked with her at the restaurant over there. I'm Tina, and this is Parker. Were you two with her when all this, Bowman trailed off, gesturing his hand broadly. "Yeah, we were with her when you caused that diversion," Parker replied. "If it wasn't for you, we'd still be stuck in that place," Tina added. Bowman had questions about Jennifer, not that he cared all that much for her anymore, but something inside him hoped that she was still alive. He quickly shook it off, getting back to the task at hand. "I'm glad I was able to help the two of you out, and I'm hoping you can do the same for me now," Bowman said. "Whatever you need, man, we're here," Parker said. "Good. I need all of you to follow us up the coast about a mile. When I give you the signal, I'm going to need you to go in opposite directions, pulling those things away from our position," Bowman explained. Violet bounced slightly on her toes. "Don't worry, officer. I have a soundtrack already picked out." "Good. I don't need you to pull them all that far, maybe half a mile at most. Once you do, you can join the others down south at the bridge and help pull those things to the coast," Bowman continued. Tina tilted her head. "So what are you going to do after we pull them away?" Bowman's face hardened with resolve. "I'm going to land this boat right on the beach and take the fight to them." Chapter 2. Bowman led the 3 boats up the coastline, staying about half a mile away from land. It took a few minutes before they had the landing zone in sight. The morning sun reflected off the water, creating a glittering path that stretched toward the horizon. The officer slowed down, waving to the other 2 vessels that this was where they were going to make landfall. With a friendly wave, the 2 other boats broke away, getting as close to shore as they safely could before cranking up the music. Heavy metal music blared from the speakers of one boat, while the other had an annoying pop song. Both songs fought for dominance, creating an ear-splitting symphony. Thankfully, after a few moments, both ships began moving slowly up the coast in opposite directions, which helped with the impending headaches. Bowman stepped out from the controls, walking to the front of the boat where the others were standing. They watched as the dozens of zombies on the beach slowly followed one of the 2 decoy boats. The creatures moved with varying speeds, some shambling slowly with faltering steps while others maintained a steadier pace. "Well, this is working a lot better than I thought it was going to," Jackson said. "Way to have faith there, Jackson," Nathan replied. Jackson let out a chuckle, shrugging his shoulders. The foursome continued watching as the horde broke apart on the beach. However, a handful of creatures remained. They would walk in one direction, only to catch the sound of a cymbal crashing on the other song and being drawn to it. Their vacant eyes showed no comprehension, only a primal response to the noise that drew them like moths to a flame. "There's always some stragglers making life difficult," Brandon observed. "Will be easy enough to take care of. My concern is what's past them on the streets," Jackson said. "We should be all right. The gun shop is only a few blocks away. It should be a straight shot from that path through the dunes there," Bowman said. Bowman pointed to the narrow pathway so that everyone knew exactly where they were going. A small opening between 2 large dunes offered the most direct route from the beach to the parking lot beyond. Several minutes passed as most of the zombies wandered away from the landing zone. Only half a dozen remained in the general vicinity, the rest at least a quarter-mile away, marching in the wrong direction. Their distraction was working perfectly, clearing the way for the team to make their move. "Okay, let's get this done. Move fast, plow through them, and get to the gun store," Bowman said. All 3 men nodded in agreement with their leader. "And Jackson, you got what we need for the door because it's going to be locked up tight?" Bowman asked. Jackson reached into the bag, pulling out a heavy-duty handheld torch. He brandished it proudly. "I never used one of these before, but Lisa said it was a bestseller down at the hardware store," Jackson said. Brandon looked at it closer, chuckling and nodding in agreement. "Oh yeah, that thing would cut through a fender in about 6 seconds. That lock doesn't stand a chance," Brandon said. "Let's hope so, because we may not have much more time than that," Bowman said. The 3 others nodded before Bowman walked back behind the controls. He fired up the boat, hitting the throttle and aiming it straight for the landing zone. The engine roared to life, propelling them toward the shore with increasing speed. The men in the front took a knee by the railing, holding on tight as they continued picking up speed. Bowman gripped the throttle, ready to pull it back as soon as they reached shore. The wind whipped past their faces, the salt spray becoming less frequent as they closed in on the beach. In a matter of moments, the boat began to rumble as the bottom scraped along the seabed. They had more than enough momentum to carry them onto shore, ripping the bottom part of the vessel to shreds in the process. The boat groaned in protest as it scraped against the sand, but Bowman kept his hand steady on the controls. The front edge of the boat made it a few yards onto the beach before coming to rest. Once they were fully stopped, Jackson, Brandon, and Nathan leapt into action, grabbing fishing spears that were secured to the floor. The three of them popped up, taking aim at the handful of zombies that were nearby and shambling towards them. One by one, as they got within striking distance, they thrusted the makeshift weapons. The spears were made to bring in the biggest fish in the ocean, so they made quick work of the zombies. The tips of the weapons cracked the skulls with ease, dropping them to the ground. Each attack was swift and efficient, the men having developed a proficiency in dispatching the dead. After a brief assault, the coast was clear. Jackson looked back to Bowman, yelling out. "We're good," Jackson called. Bowman broke away from the controls, rushing up to the front of the boat before holding onto the railing and flipping over the side. He let his legs dangle for a moment before letting go, landing softly on the sand. The other men followed, getting situated and readying their weapons. They moved as quickly as they could across the sand, keeping their heads on a swivel to make sure the ghouls that followed the diversion weren't coming back towards them. The distant thump of music could still be heard from both directions, a reassuring sign that their plan was still working. Bowman reached the pathway through the dunes first, immediately spotting two zombies shambling in their direction from the parking lot. Rather than draw any of his weapons, he bolted ahead, picking up speed. His boots dug into the sand as he pushed forward, closing the gap between himself and the creatures in seconds. He lowered his shoulder as he reached the first zombie, driving it into its gut and lifting it off the ground. He took 2 steps before stopping on a dime and shoving the creature away, sending it flying into the chest of its friend. Both zombies tumbled to the ground, allowing the men to run around them. The creatures reached out, grabbing nothing but air, as their prey darted by. Their frustrated moans faded behind the group as they pressed on toward their target. Bowman reached the parking lot, which had a dozen or so creatures spread out. All of them shambled towards them, none within 10 yards. The cracked asphalt was littered with abandoned luggage and discarded personal items, evidence of panic from the early days of the outbreak. "Just plow through them, we got this," Bowman shouted. Nobody fired their weapons. Instead, they followed the officer as he led them right through the lot and onto the street. Bowman glanced to the north and south, spotting more zombies than he would have liked. Much to his relief, though, none were remotely close to them. The streets were a mess, abandoned cars, scattered debris, and occasional dark stains on the pavement that he tried not to think about too much. Bowman continued leading the group down the street, the sounds of moans coming from all directions. The once quiet streets were now firmly in the hands of the undead. The group continued running for what felt like an eternity, the men looking around nervously as dozens of creatures emerged from every street and opening between buildings. The noise they made as they ran was drawing attention, with more zombies appearing from side streets and alleys with each passing moment. They got within half a block of the gun store when they were forced to stop in the middle of the road. "Good God, how in the hell are we dealing with that?" Brandon asked. In the parking lot stood 24 zombies, all of whom were pressed up against the building that sat 20 yards off the road. While none of them had taken notice of the men yet, they prevented them from reaching their target. The creatures pawed mindlessly at the reinforced glass of the storefront, as if some primal memory told them something valuable was inside. Bowman stared at it for a moment, glancing back behind them to see a formidable mob forming in the road, shambling ever closer. The group had inadvertently created a funnel, drawing zombies from multiple directions who were now converging on their position. "What do we do, Bowman?" Jackson asked. Bowman muttered curses under his breath before slinging his assault rifle around forcefully. This maneuver got the other 3 men to do the same, everybody ready for battle. Fire as quick as you can. We can get more once we're inside, Bowman said. The men nodded, following Bowman as he ran up to the edge of the parking lot. He planted his feet firmly on the pavement, raising his rifle to head level and pulling the trigger as quickly as he could. He didn't take the time to aim other than keeping it at head level, opting for the spray and pray method rather than marksmanship. The technique paid off, dropping 8 creatures in a matter of seconds. The rapid gunfire echoed off the surrounding buildings, creating a deafening cacophony. The other men didn't have that luxury with their hunting rifles, forced to pick their targets before squeezing the trigger. The high-quality scopes on top of their weapons, however, kept their bullets flying straight. Each shot found its mark, dropping zombies with ruthless efficiency. Gunfire filled the air for a solid minute as the 4 men spent a significant amount of ammunition. As the last ghoul dropped to the ground, their weapons fell silent. The sudden absence of noise was almost as jarring as the gunfire had been. The quiet was quickly broken by the mob of zombies closing the gap to their rear. They glanced back, seeing the front edge of the horde within 10 yards of them. The creatures moved with a single-minded purpose now, drawn by the gunfire and the prospect of fresh prey. "Jackson, get that door open," Bowman shouted. Jackson bolted towards the building, reaching into his small canvas bag and pulling out the handheld torch. The metal tool glinted in the sunlight as he rushed toward the entrance. The others ran after him, reloading as they went. Their fingers worked quickly, slamming fresh magazines into their weapons with practiced movements. Empty casings littered the ground behind them, abandoned in their haste. Jackson took a knee by the door, firing up the torch and beginning to work on the lock. The blue flame cut through the metal like it was butter, sending sparks flying in all directions. Bowman spun around, taking aim with his rifle and squeezing off a few rounds, picking off the leaders of the pack, just in case they needed more time. Bowman popped off 10 rounds before stopping and yelling out to Jackson. "Are we getting close, Jackson?" Bowman asked. Before Jackson could answer, the door lock snapped open, freeing the door from the frame. The satisfying crack of the metal giving way was music to their ears. "We're in," Jackson called. Jackson tossed the torch inside, drawing his handgun and pushing through. The others followed him through, Bowman slamming the door shut behind them. He immediately began barking orders to Nathan and Brandon. "Find the heaviest thing you can carry and block this door," Bowman commanded. The 2 men nodded and grabbed a nearby metal rack, dragging it over. The feet squealed against the linoleum floor as they positioned it against the entrance. As they did, Bowman flinched when Jackson fired his handgun at the front of the store. Bowman ran down the aisle, gun at the ready. The interior of the store was dim, most of the fluorescent lights having gone out days ago. Another gunshot went off before falling quiet. The officer came around the corner to find Jackson standing over 2 zombified bodies. The creatures wore the remnants of store uniforms, suggesting they'd been employees when the outbreak hit. "Are you all right, Jackson?" Bowman asked. The younger man nodded, letting out a sigh of relief as he checked out his unbitten arm. Sweat beaded on his forehead, as much from the close call as from their sprint to the store. "The son of a bitch nearly took a bite out of me, missed me by 2 inches at the most," Jackson said. Bowman stepped over to his friend, patting him on the back. "Come on, let's clear the rest of the store. Then we'll lift your spirits up and do a little shopping," Bowman said. Jackson let out a chuckle, patting the officer on the back before joining him in clearing out the building. Chapter 3. Linda stood at the side of the bridge, looking out at the water while a couple dozen others worked to remove the barricade. Despite the noise made by them, she could hear the faint sounds of music coming from the water just up the coast. The rhythmic thump of bass and the occasional guitar riff carried across the water, but not quite clear enough for her to make out the song. A few moments of tranquility passed before the radio on her hip crackled to life. "Hey Linda, do you read me?" Bowman asked. "I got you loud and clear, officer. Give me some good news," Linda replied. "We made it to the gun store in one piece," Bowman said. "That's fantastic news. Is it still well stocked?" Linda asked. "Oh yeah, doesn't look like a single bullet is missing," Bowman said. "Excellent. I'll let the others know," Linda said. "How close are they to getting underway?" Bowman asked. Linda looked over, spotting the entire left side of the barricade clear of the road. Several people were getting situated into the back of the large moving trucks that had been converted into rolling death machines. The modifications were impressive. Steel plates welded to the sides, reinforced bumpers, and what looked like medieval weapon mounts protruding from various angles. "It looks like they're about to roll out, and I'm not sure what kind of speakers those boats have, but I can hear the music from here," Linda said. "Good. Let's hope that pulls enough of those things off the road so they can get into position," Bowman said. Before Linda could respond, the rumbling of a massive 4-seater dune buggy engine filled the air. She turned around to see Norma driving up in a modified vehicle. The machine looked like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie, albeit a low-budget one. A couple layers of chain-link fencing had been secured to every part of the roll cage, the only opening being a small one on the top, allowing access for the driver and passengers. The metal gleamed in the afternoon sun, and Linda could see that someone had taken considerable time and effort to make this vehicle as zombie-proof as possible. Norma waved at Linda, motioning for her to come over. Her grin was visible even through the protective mesh, and Linda could tell the older woman was excited about something. "Hang on, Bowman, I think Norma wants to talk to you," Linda said. "This should be good," Bowman said. "If you had any idea of what I was looking at, you'd know just how right you are." "Hang on," Linda said. Linda walked over, tossing the radio into the dune buggy. Norma clicked it on, speaking with bravado. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who'd made up her mind about something and wasn't going to be talked out of it. "Hey Bowman, I had a thought after you boys left," Norma said. "The last time I heard you say you had an idea, I woke up 2 counties over missing my pants," Bowman said. Norma let out a laugh before getting back to the moment. The memory seemed to amuse her greatly, and Linda found herself wondering what kind of adventures these two had shared in the past. "I wish it was that good, but look, I figured we needed to check out the coast up north, up towards Corolla Beach. I got a ride all gassed up and ready to go," Norma said. "It's not a huge priority, Norma," Bowman said. "I understand that, which is why I'm going to do it myself. I just need you to have a care package ready for me when I swing by in a few minutes," Norma said. "I can do that, but what do you need?" Bowman asked. "A couple of handguns and a rifle would suit me just fine," Norma said. "I'll have it ready for you, but I'm serious, it can wait until we thin out the mob on Bodie," Bowman said. Before Norma could respond, a few voices from the barricade yelled out. "We have incoming," someone shouted. "Hang on, Bowman," Norma said. Norma stood up in the dune buggy just enough to see a pickup truck breaking from the line and driving down the highway. A handful of slower-moving zombies shambled through the smattering of cars. The creatures moved with the familiar, uncoordinated gait they'd all become accustomed to, but there were more of them than anyone had expected this close to the bridge. Within moments, the truck skidded to a halt and several gunshots popped off. The sharp crack of rifle fire echoed across the water, followed by the distinctive thump of bodies hitting pavement. Even from this distance, Linda could see the muzzle flashes from the truck bed. "Is everything okay?" Bowman asked. "Yeah, they're just already getting company and they haven't even left the bridge yet. Which brings me to my next thought. They could really use a rabbit for those things to chase after," Norma said. Bowman went silent for a moment, understanding the analogy. Linda could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he processed what Norma was suggesting. It was a dangerous proposition, but it made tactical sense. "And you want to be that rabbit?" Bowman asked. "Hell yeah, I do. This damn thing was nearly $15,000. I never would have been able to afford that. Plus, I don't have to worry about those pesky police officers pulling me over because I'm doing 60 down the main drag," Norma said. The enthusiasm in her voice was infectious, causing Bowman to let out a laugh. "Okay, Norma, I get your point. Just be careful and give me a shout when you get close," Bowman said. "Oh, trust me, honey, you'll hear me coming. The only thing louder than the engine is the sound system," Norma said. "Travel safe, Norma. I'll have your care package ready when you get here," Bowman said. Norma clicked off the radio and raced it through the opening to hand back to Linda, who waved her off. The older woman's excitement was unmistakable, like a teenager who'd just gotten the keys to their first car. "Go ahead and keep it. I have a collection in my bag," Linda said. You can come along if you want. I promise I'm mostly a safe driver, Norma said. Linda let out a chuckle, shaking her head no. The offer was tempting in its own way, but she knew her place was here, coordinating between the various teams and making sure everyone stayed connected. I appreciate the offer, but I prefer being on this side of the line, Linda said. That's a shame, because I'm about to peel the paint off this sucker, Norma said. Norma reached up, pulling a metal grate over the opening at the top before hitting the gas. She sped down the bridge towards the opening in the barricade, stopping when Anthony looked down from the top of one of the moving trucks. His position gave him a commanding view of the entire operation, and Linda could see him directing workers. "What in the hell are you doing, Norma?" Anthony called down. "I'm gonna give you boys some breathing room. I'll keep it kinda slow up until the strip mall, then I'm hauling ass to Corolla Beach," Norma replied. "Be safe, Norma, but more importantly, have fun," Anthony said. Norma smirked before reaching down and clicking the CD player on. The opening strums of a song came on. The melody was pleasant, as if it was building to something. She bobbed her head to the tune, knowing that this was the musical calm before the storm. 10 seconds later, a brutal, heavy metal song kicked in, the bass and drums creating such a thunderous racket that the railing on the tops of the trucks rattled. The sound was so intense that Anthony could feel it in his chest, the vibrations traveling through the bridge structure itself. Norma hit the gas, peeling out from the bridge, cutting over to the sandy area at the side of the road, kicking sand up as she sped up the highway. The dune buggy handled the rough terrain like it was built for it, which Linda supposed it was. Clouds of sand and debris marked her passage as she accelerated away from the bridge. It took only a few moments for her to get through the majority of the abandoned cars, hitting the open highway. She weaved in and out between a few shambling zombies, who immediately heard the heavy metal music and roar of the engine, turning around to follow. The creatures' heads snapped toward the sound with mechanical precision, their vacant eyes focusing on this new prey. Over the next few miles, she encountered nearly 100 zombies, slowing down as she passed to make sure they followed. The strategy was working perfectly. Creatures that had been scattered across the landscape were now moving in a single direction, away from the bridge and the convoy that would soon be traveling this route. "Yeah, that's right, follow Mama. There's nothing you want down there," Norma said to herself. Norma kept driving down the highway, keeping a watch on her rear-view mirror to make sure none of the ghouls lost interest to head towards the bridge. After a while, she had quite the following. The parade of undead stretched back several hundred yards, a shambling mass of decay following the Pied Piper of death metal. The sight was both fascinating and horrifying. So many people who had once lived normal lives, worked jobs, loved their families, now reduced to mindless creatures following a sound. But it was working, and in this new world, anything that worked was worth doing. Norma spotted the strip mall parking lot up ahead on the right, and as the building came into view, she saw a couple hundred creatures still trying to break inside. The mass of bodies pressed against the storefronts like a living wall, their moans creating a constant background noise that competed with her music. "Jesus Christ, there's nothing that interesting in those shops," Norma muttered. Norma tried to look through the crowd into the stores, but it was difficult. However, after a moment, she saw one person's head pop up into the top window of a store, as if they were balancing on someone else's shoulders. The brief glimpse was enough to confirm what she'd suspected. There were still people trapped inside, waiting for rescue. The young woman looked tired and scared, waving frantically to get Norma's attention. With a few clicks, Norma cut the music and picked up a bullhorn. "I need y'all to sit tight. Help is on the way. It's just going to be a few more hours," Norma announced. Her voice carried across the parking lot, and she could see the effect it had on the people trapped inside. Hope was a powerful thing, even in the darkest of circumstances. Norma looked at the young woman, who gave her a thumbs up. The simple gesture conveyed more gratitude than 1,000 words could have. She quickly tossed the bullhorn back into passenger seat before cranking up the music. The heavy metal resumed at full volume, immediately recapturing the attention of the zombies who had started to lose interest. The creatures turned back toward the sound, their momentary confusion replaced by renewed purpose. "All right, let's see what this puppy can really do," Norma said. Norma slammed on the gas, the tires squealing before gaining traction as she sped down the highway towards the gun store. The dune buggy shot forward like a rocket, kicking up a cloud of sand and debris as it accelerated. Behind her, the parade of zombies continued their relentless pursuit, drawn by the promise of noise and movement that always seemed just out of reach. Chapter 4. Norma continued speeding up the highway through the heart of Bodie Island. Despite her desire to go fast, she kept the speed manageable, not wanting to risk a wreck. The dune buggy handled well at moderate speeds, but she knew that one wrong move at high velocity could send her tumbling. The heart of the island was in shambles. Abandoned cars, broken windows in storefronts, blood splattered on the road. Creatures wandered everywhere, virtually all of them slower moving. The contrast between what this place had been just days ago and what it was now was stark. Tourist shops that had once sold t-shirts and beach umbrellas now had their windows smashed, their contents scattered across the sidewalks. Occasionally, her eye would be drawn to a zombie moving faster than the others, but they were far enough away to not pose any danger. Most of the creatures she encountered had slowed down from their initial burst of speed, their movements more sluggish than the runners she'd seen in the first days. It was a small mercy in an otherwise hellish situation. The main drag through the center of town told the story of the outbreak. Cars had crashed into each other or veered off the road when their drivers turned. Some vehicles sat with doors hanging open where passengers had fled from infected drivers, while others contained the grim silhouettes of figures that hadn't made it out in time. As she got within a few blocks of the gun shop, she turned the music down, picking up the radio. The sudden reduction in volume made the ambient sounds of the devastated town more noticeable. Distant moaning, the creak of damaged buildings in the breeze, and the ever-present crash of waves from the nearby ocean. "Hey Bowman, I'm a few blocks away. What am I walking into up there?" Norma asked. There was a delayed response, but it came. The static crackled before Bowman's voice cut through clearly. "The highway is looking a little rough, but if you cut through the beachside neighborhood, you'll have a few minutes before much of anything gets to you," Bowman said. "Sounds good to me. I'll be there in 2 shakes," Norma replied. Norma cut the radio completely off, wanting to minimize her noise. She cut the wheel to the right, heading towards the ocean just a few blocks away. The salt air grew stronger as she approached the coast, carrying with it the familiar sense of seaweed and brine that had always meant relaxation and peace to her. The side streets were empty, confusing her at first, until she thought about it. "I guess those music boats worked better than we had hoped," Norma said to herself. Whatever the reason for the lack of company, Norma was thankful for it. She made the turn to the north, driving along the beachfront houses before getting to the turn. Norma sped up to the gun store entrance, rolling over several bodies that were strewn out in the parking lot. It was a bumpy ride, but the dune buggy handled it with ease. The reinforced chassis and heavy-duty suspension absorbed the impacts without difficulty, though Norma couldn't help but grimace at the crunching sounds beneath her tires. As she reached the entrance, the door opened and Bowman stepped out carrying a small canvas bag along with an assault rifle. As soon as he laid eyes on the dune buggy, he began laughing, shaking his head. His expression was a mixture of admiration and disbelief, as if he couldn't quite process what he was seeing. Norma cut the engine as she parked, so that they could both hear each other. "That is one hell of a ride there, Norma. What is that, some aftermarket chain link?" Bowman asked. "Hey, it ain't stupid if it works," Norma replied. Bowman reached down and grabbed the fence, giving it a shake, finding it sturdy. The metal held firm under his testing, the welds solid and the mounting points secure. Afterwards, he gave an approving shrug and nod. "Yeah, nothing's getting through that. Nice job," Bowman said. "I can fix your car up like this too. Just know I charge top dollar," Norma said. Norma reached up and pulled the metal grate back so that Bowman could hand her the weapons. "Consider this a down payment then," Bowman said. Norma set the assault rifle in the passenger seat floorboard before opening up the bag. Inside were 2 large caliber handguns, along with half a dozen magazines filled to the brim with bullets. The weapons were quality pieces, well maintained and ready for action. "For something that wasn't exactly a priority, you sure have me armed like it is," Norma observed. "Well, we got it to spare. Plus, if anybody gets in trouble, I know you'll come in guns a-blazing," Bowman said. "Damn right I will," Norma said. "So how's the island looking?" Bowman asked. "It's gonna need a few coats of paint, that's for damn sure. But I've seen some survivors hiding, so it's not all going to be bad news," Norma said. "Good to hear it," Bowman said. Both of them turned back to the highway when they heard moans ever so faintly. They spotted a mob of creatures shambling towards them, but still nearly 100 yards away. The zombies moved with a familiar, uncoordinated gait, but their numbers were significant, at least 20 or 30 in the leading edge of what appeared to be a larger group. "Looks like that's my cue," Norma said. "Be careful and let me know what you find up there," Bowman said. Norma gave him a thumbs up before cranking the dune buggy up. She let the engine idle for a moment before hitting the gas, picking up speed as she headed straight for the mob. Rather than avoid it, she hit it straight on. Several bodies went flying to the side, while the large tires rolled right over the others. She let out a playful yell as she jostled around inside the cage. The reinforced construction of the vehicle protected her from the impacts, though she could feel every bump and collision through the frame. Soon after she hit the highway, cutting the wheel hard to the right to head north. The next few minutes were more of the same, driving through the carnage left behind from the first days of the zombie apocalypse. Abandoned vehicles created an obstacle course that she navigated with increasing skill, using the dune buggy's maneuverability to weave between the larger obstructions. The zombies began thinning as she reached the turnoff to the bridge off the island. She paused before continuing to the north, looking towards the blockade. While it was out of sight, it was clear that it was working as she barely saw a dozen creatures in the road. "Let's hope that's a sign of things to come," Norma said to herself. Norma hit the gas, heading off to the right, onto the road that ran to the north end of the island. In the summer, this was a major thoroughfare, but during the off-season, the people renting the houses were few and far between. The difference was stark. Where the main tourist areas had been packed with the undead, this section was nearly deserted. "It's either the apocalypse or the off-season, kind of hard to tell sometimes," Norma said. She chuckled to herself, amused by her own wit. She shook it off and continued heading to the north. A good 15-minute drive through some small communities, which had a smattering of creatures and little else, and she reached the end of the road. The communities here were different from the touristy areas, more permanent residents, year-round homes rather than vacation rentals. The lawns were better maintained, the houses more lived-in looking. Norma paused at the entrance, jumping out and checking the tire pressure, wanting to make sure it was beach-worthy. The last thing she wanted to do was get stuck. Not that there was much danger this far up, but she knew she'd never hear the end of it from Bowman. The beach access was a narrow path between two dunes, marked by weathered wooden posts that had seen many seasons of salt spray and storms. Sand had drifted across the pathway, but it was still passable for her vehicle. Norma pulled out onto the beach, not sure of what to expect, but relieved to find it completely empty. No cars, no zombies, just wide-open sand, with the waves crashing gently on her right. The beach stretched for miles in both directions, a ribbon of pristine sand that seemed untouched by the chaos that had consumed the rest of the world. It was a few miles to the first bank of houses. The only way to reach it was via the beach. Past that, there were a couple more isolated communities dotting the landscape all the way up to the Virginia border. These were some of the most exclusive and remote properties on the Outer Banks, accessible only by beach driving or boat. Norma knew it was unlikely that a mob of zombies would be able to reach this far south. It was still a possibility, and after everything they were going through to secure the island, she wasn't leaving anything up to chance. The trek across sand would be difficult for the undead, but not impossible, especially if they were following the shoreline. 15 minutes went by before she spotted the first house on the horizon. She stopped a few hundred yards short, making sure there weren't any zombies roaming around. The house was a magnificent structure, raised high on palings with expansive decks that offered panoramic views of the ocean. It was the kind of place that cost more per week to rent than most people made in a month. "Well, let's see if anybody is home," Norma said. Norma cranked up the volume on the heavy metal CD, letting it blare as she drove up to the house. Before she reached it, an older couple came out onto the balcony, giving her a wave. Their appearance was a relief. They looked healthy, alert, and most importantly, alive. Norma cut the music before pulling up close enough to the house so that they could hear each other. The engine idled quietly as she positioned herself where conversation would be possible without shouting. "Hey down there. I can't say we were expecting visitors today, but welcome," the older man called down. "I appreciate it. I'm Norma," she replied. "I'm Ben. This is my wife Marge," the man said. "It's nice to meet y'all," Norma said. Norma looked around, relieved that the noise hadn't attracted any zombies. "So it looks like things are pretty quiet up here," Norma observed. "Yeah, we had a little bit of trouble with the neighbors a couple days ago, but ever since we've been up here all alone," Ben said. "So none of those people coming down from the north?" Norma asked. "Some friends of ours dropped by a couple days ago to check on us. They have one of the houses up in Korova, but they said it's all quiet up there too," Ben said. "That's good to know," Norma said. "How's it looking down there?" Ben asked. Norma smacked the chain-link fence protection on her vehicle before letting out a horror laugh. "It's still a little apocalyptic down there, but we're working on fixing that," Norma said. "I wish there was something we could do to help, but I had hip replacement surgery about 6 months ago, and it would take me 10 minutes to just get down the stairs," Ben said. "Don't worry, we have all the manpower we need. That said, there is something you could do for me," Norma said. "Just name it," Ben said. "Do you have a radio in there?" Norma asked. "We do," Ben confirmed. "Good. Just keep it on, and give me a shout if you see any of those things moving down towards us. I'll make sure someone is stationed close enough to hear you." "They'll be on channel 30, Norma said. "That sounds easy enough," Ben said. "I appreciate it. Now I'm going to head back and help them clear out Bodie. I'll be in touch," Norma said. "I look forward to it. Be careful out there," Ben said. Norma nodded before pulling out the radio, tuning it to the right channel. Her voice carried a hint of excitement to it. "Hey Bowman, it's Norma. We're looking good on the north side," she said. Chapter 5. Anthony stood atop of the lead vehicle as it pushed north on the highway. The large, reinforced moving truck was ready for battle, even if they hadn't yet encountered much resistance. The modifications to the vehicle were impressive. Steel plating welded to the sides, reinforced bumpers, and the custom-built platform on top that gave him a commanding view of the road ahead. The caravan of the 2 moving trucks and 4 pickup trucks continued moving at a steady pace, getting within half a mile of the strip mall. Anthony could see smoke rising in the distance. Whether from fires or something else, he couldn't tell. The coordination between the vehicles was smooth, each driver maintaining proper spacing and formation. Anthony pulled out the radio, tuning it to the community channel. The device crackled to life, and he could hear chatter from various teams across the island. "All right, everybody, listen up. We got our first big test up ahead. I can't even see the strip mall buildings yet, but I see a lot of those things. My team will be on point. We're going to get into the driveway and start picking them off. Once we have the crowd focused on us, I want the second team to keep pushing onto the bridge so Matt can figure out what we need to do. While he assessed the situation, I need the runner to get up to the gun store," Anthony said. Anthony looked back to the second team of vehicles, getting a thumbs up from the drivers. "All right, hold on to your asses, because here we go," Anthony said. Anthony kicked the roof of the truck a couple of times, getting his driver to pick up the pace. The 2 pickup trucks that flanked them stayed back, letting the massive vehicle take point. The engine roared as they accelerated, the heavy truck eating up the asphalt with surprising speed for its size. Anthony held onto the railing as they picked up speed, anticipating the bump when they entered the parking lot. The truck wobbled back and forth as the suspension handled the driveway. The reinforced platform absorbed most of the shock, but Anthony could feel every bump and pothole through the metal framework. The strip mall came into full view as they crested a small rise. The scene before them was exactly what they'd expected, but still unsettling to witness. The buildings themselves appeared intact, but the parking lot was another story entirely. Anthony looked ahead, spotting a horde of creatures 100 strong still pressing against the storefronts. He yelled out so that his driver could hear him over the engine noise and the growing chorus of moans from the zombies. "Pull up right into the middle of the lot and lay on the horn," Anthony called down. "You got it, Anthony," the driver replied. A moment later, The driver brought the moving truck to a graceful stop in the middle of the lot before pressing the horn. The loud sound quickly overtook the moans as the dominant noise, drawing every zombie over to them. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Heads turned in unison and the entire mass of undead began shambling toward their position. Anthony looked down into the hole in the roof, taking command of the situation. He looked down to 4 others, who were standing there with fishing spears in hand. The weapons had been modified with longer handles and reinforced tips, turning sporting goods into instruments of war. "Give me one of those and get up top. It's time to put these things to use," Anthony said. One of the people inside the truck passed up a spear, which was about 8 feet long. At the handle end, there was a leather strap that had been fastened to it. While the others worked their way up the ladder, Anthony walked over to the railing, securing his weapon to it so that a creature couldn't knock it out of his hands. Once secure, he tested it out, picking out his target. The first of the creatures shambled over to him, a tall man wearing shorts and a colorful Outer Banks t-shirt. Anthony tried to avoid looking too much at him, but couldn't help himself, spotting the huge gaping wound on his neck. The man had probably been enjoying a vacation just days ago, completely unaware that his life was about to end in the most horrific way imaginable. "I'm sorry, buddy, but your vacation is at an end," Anthony said. Anthony got the spear in his hands, taking aim before driving it through the man's forehead. The blade easily pierced through the skull, ending the zombie's unlife in a flash. The resistance was less than he'd expected. The tip went through bone and brain tissue like it was designed for exactly this purpose. Anthony held onto his weapon tightly, letting gravity handle the rest. He watched as the corpse slid off the spike, allowing him to line up his next shot. Before he did, however, the others joined him on top of the truck, hooking up their makeshift weapons and beginning their assault. Only one man didn't start. He was younger and was fortunate enough to have avoided coming into contact with the undead until now. His face was pale, and his hands shook as he gripped his spear. Anthony saw the man's hesitation, setting his weapon down and walking over to him. He spoke in a comforting manner, knowing they were going to need his help today. Experience had taught him that everyone had to face this moment eventually, the first time they had to kill what had once been a person. "Hey, I know, this is a messed up situation, but it's work that needs to get done. Just take a deep breath and shove that spear towards their heads. Once you get the feel for it, you'll be good," Anthony said. The man took a deep breath, nodding his head as he was trying to psych himself up in his own mind. Anthony watched as the young man moved his weapon over the edge of the railing, looking down at the growing collection of creatures below. Once he got a look, he froze again. The zombies were pressing against the sides of the truck now, their hands grasping upward, mouths opening and closing in silent hunger. Their eyes showed no recognition, no humanity, just the endless need to feed that drove them forward. "Don't look at them too long, just spot ahead and strike, then move on to the next one. You got this," Anthony said. The young man nodded, letting out a forced grunt before delivering his first kill strike. The spear found its mark, and another zombie dropped to the ground. Anthony watched on like a proud parent before going back to his spear. Everyone had to cross that line eventually, from survivor to fighter. He looked back over the edge, and the bulk of the zombies had reached the truck. The dead flesh looked like a wave flowing back and forth. They pressed against the vehicle from all sides, their combined weight rocking the massive truck slightly on its suspension. Anthony stared at it for a minute before resuming his attack. As he stabbed a ghoul right between the eyes, he flinched when he heard gunshots coming from down the highway. He grabbed his radio off his belt. "Team 2, what the hell is going on?" Anthony asked. "A runner caught the other pickup off guard, and they panicked," the driver replied. "We'll keep that shit under control, at least until we get to the gun shop," Anthony said. "Copy that, Anthony," the driver said. The driver tossed the radio back down on the dash, shaking his head. Matt, sitting in the passenger seat, let out a laugh. The tension of the mission was getting to everyone, but they all dealt with it in their own ways. He can get a little agitated when things don't go exactly how he thinks they're going to go, but he's as solid as they come, Matt said. "Is that why you hired him?" the driver asked. "Of course. Well, that and the fact he was a warm body who showed up on time, Matt said. Well, I'm out then, the driver said. Both men broke into laughter as the moving truck ahead of them cleared the way. Most of the zombies had moved towards the coast, drawn by a combination of music from the boats and Norma. The strategy was working. Multiple distractions were pulling the undead in different directions, thinning their numbers. The sound of spears striking skulls continued from the truck ahead, punctuated by the occasional grunt of effort from the fighters on top. It was brutal work, but necessary. After a few moments of stabbing, the coast was clear, the fighters on top of the truck giving Matt the thumbs up. Bodies littered the ground around the vehicle, but the immediate threat had been neutralized. Looks like I'm up, Matt said. Matt got out of the truck, walking towards the bridge to Roanoke Island. Despite the all-clear sign, he kept his head on a swivel, looking for trouble but finding none. The silence was almost eerie after the chaos of the zombie assault, broken only by the distant sound of waves and the occasional call of seabirds. He looked ahead to the massive wreck in the middle of the bridge. The tractor-trailer that had provided him a lifeline on the first day of the apocalypse now offered more help. Between it and the cars smashed up against it, there was a near impenetrable barrier separating the two islands. The twisted metal and concrete created a formidable obstacle that would be difficult for zombies to navigate. The bridge itself showed signs of the violent collision that had created the blockade. Chunks of concrete had been knocked loose from the impact, and the guardrails were bent and twisted. But the structure appeared sound and the barrier was holding. As he looked around, the driver from the truck he was in walked up to join him. "How are we looking?" the driver asked. Matt didn't answer immediately, pulling a notepad out of his back pocket and tossing it over to the man. "Write down what I tell you," Matt said. The driver didn't hesitate in opening up the notebook, jotting down notes as Matt spoke. His pen was ready, waiting for instructions. "We need to reposition these cars, which shouldn't be any big deal since they're already in pretty good position. After that, we're going to need to get some welders up here to install permanent reinforcements," Matt said. "What about the people on Roanoke Island?" the driver asked. "If there's anybody left alive, we can get to them by boat, but this bridge needs to be sealed," Matt said. Matt continued staring at the wreckage, spotting a couple of potential weak points on the right side. There were gaps between vehicles that could potentially allow zombies to squeeze through, and one section where the guardrail had been completely destroyed. "I need you to call Linda, tell her to send up a 4-man team. While they get here, you and I are going to patch up that spot," Matt said. The driver nodded before turning back and running to the truck for the radio. As he went, Matt continued staring at the wreckage, nodding. "Yeah, this is going to work just fine. We're going to have this island locked down in no time." Chapter 6. Bowman stood in the doorway of the gun store, a scoped assault rifle in his hands. He closed his eyes, enjoying the cool breeze as it hit his face. 3 hours had passed since their assault to take back Bodie Island had begun, and thus far, it was going smoother than he could have possibly dreamed. No deaths on their end, dozens of survivors rescued, and they were moving up the highway at a breakneck speed. The coordination between teams had been flawless, each group executing their assigned tasks with care and precision. Over the last hour, the sounds of gunshots popping off in the distance continued to grow, getting closer seemingly with every one. In normal times, hearing a gun being fired would have been cause for concern. Now it was the sound of progress. Each shot meant another zombie eliminated, another step closer to reclaiming their home. Bowman opened his eyes as the breeze died down, looking out at the parking lot and neighborhood just beyond it. Dozens of bodies were scattered about, having been put down with well-placed shots. The scene would have been horrifying a week ago, but now it represented safety, security, and the hard-won progress they were making. His attention was drawn to a house across the street, where a lone creature staggered out from the carport. It was in rough shape, dragging a mangled leg behind it, as if the ghoul had fallen out of the raised patio and landed hard on it. The zombie moved with an awkward, lurching gait that suggested even more significant damage to its lower body than just the leg injury. Bowman pulled his rifle up to the firing position, looking through the scope. The crosshairs settled on the creature's head, and with a steady breath and gentle squeeze of the trigger, The ghoul fell to the ground in a heap. The shot echoed briefly before fading into the ambient sounds of distant gunfire. "Another straggler?" Jackson asked. "Yep, put him down before he got to the street," Bowman replied. "That's the first one in what, half an hour?" Jackson asked. Bowman looked down at his watch before nodding in agreement. The intervals between zombie sightings were getting longer, which was exactly what they'd hoped for. "About that," Bowman said. "Looks like they're really starting to thin out," Jackson observed. "Let's hope so, because if they are, then we just might get this place cleared out before sundown." "At least the ones that aren't trapped inside," Bowman said. "Yeah, I'm not really looking forward to clearing those out," Jackson said. "We'll be all right. There are some riot shields back at the station, so we'll be able to hold them up while we take their heads off," Bowman said. "Oh, I know we'll be all right, but just thinking about all the buildings we need to clear is making me feel tired," Jackson said. Bowman let out a bit of a laugh, Jackson joining in as well. The levity was welcome. They had all been operating under intense stress for days, and moments of humor helped maintain morale and sanity. Before too long, their attention was pulled to the highway, where a pickup truck made the turn towards them. After a few seconds, they realized it was Matt and his driver. The truck approached at a steady pace, kicking up dust as it navigated around the debris scattered across the road. The truck skidded to a halt in front of the gun shop door, Matt having a huge smile on his face. His expression was one of obvious satisfaction, the look of a man who'd accomplished something significant. "I take it things are going well out there?" Bowman asked. "Damn right they are, Bowman. I got the southern bridge locked down. Once things settle down, I'm going to do some more permanent reinforcements, but nobody is getting through that," Matt said. "That's good news. But what are you doing here?" Bowman asked. "I wanted to go get a look at the northern bridge and make sure we're looking good up there," Matt said. "Don't worry about it right now. I talked to Norma a couple hours ago and she said there wasn't much of anything going on. It can wait until we get the streets cleared," Bowman said. Matt thought about it for a moment before nodding in agreement. "Well, if Norma says it's good, I'm not one to argue with her," Matt said. "Not that you'd win that argument anyway," Bowman said. Both men broke out into laughter before Bowman got a glint of an idea in his eye. He'd been thinking about making a run, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity. "How do you feel about kicking back and taking a break?" Bowman asked. "I'm not opposed to it. Pushing those cars into place gave me a workout," Matt said. "Well, go put your feet up and grab some coffee. We brewed a pot in the break room," Bowman said. Bowman nodded into the store without ever breaking eye contact with the truck, something Matt noticed immediately. "What are you going to do?" Matt asked. "Jackson and I are going to pay some friends a visit," Bowman said. "Wait, we are?" Jackson asked. "We are indeed. Grab a rifle and some ammo," Bowman said. Jackson gave a nonchalant shrug in response before stepping back into the store. A few seconds later, he emerged with his rifle and a bag of ammunition, tossing it into the back of the truck. Both Jackson and Bowman jumped into the truck bed, the officer smacking the roof of the truck, confusing the driver. The metal rang out with a sharp bang that got the driver's attention immediately. Yeah, so where am I taking you?" the driver asked. "The grocery store up the road," Bowman said. While the driver nodded, Jackson let out a chuckle, shaking his head. He'd caught on to Bowman's real motivation for this impromptu visit. "Amazing how your friend just happens to be a hot woman way too young for you," Jackson said. Bowman just stared Jackson down, prompting Jackson to break into laughter. The officer's expression was stern, but not entirely convincing. "That's what I thought. No response," Jackson said. "Shut up and get your rifle ready," Bowman said. Jackson gave the officer a playful thumbs up before doing as instructed. He checked his weapon and adjusted his position in the truck bed, preparing for whatever they might encounter on the short journey. The driver got them back to the highway, making the turn to the south a few blocks before cutting over to the grocery store. The hundreds of creatures that had been there the previous day were down to only a couple dozen. The transformation was remarkable. What had been an impenetrable wall of undead was now a manageable threat. The constant stream of gunfire coming from the south of their position had pulled most of them away, making their job all the easier. "Pull up just to the left of the front door. We'll handle the rest," Bowman said. "You got it," the driver said. The driver pulled the truck into the space just up from the door, putting it into park before honking his horn a few times. A moment later, the zombies by the front of the store began shambling towards them. Their movements were predictable, driven by the simple stimulus response that governed their existence. Bowman and Jackson stood up in the truck bed, looking over the roof and taking aim. Each man squeezed the trigger methodically, sending round after round into the heads of the shambling dead. Their shooting was precise and economical, conserving ammunition while eliminating threats. Neither man panicked because there was little in the way of a threat. The zombies were small in number and didn't have the ability to reach them, making the ghouls easy prey. In a matter of minutes, all of them fell to the ground motionless. None of them got within 10 yards of the truck. The efficiency of the operation was impressive, accomplished with minimal risk and effort. Bowman looked around, relieved to see not a single creature moving within sight, not in the lot, not on the highway, just clear. The silence was almost unsettling after days of constant vigilance and the ever-present threat of zombie attacks. "Come on, let's go see if they're open," Bowman said. Bowman and Jackson jumped down from the truck, pausing by the driver before heading to the door. "We won't be long. If you see anything, just honk," Bowman said. "You got it," the driver replied. The two men walked over to the metal shutter that was reachable through the broken glass of the sliding doors. Bowman rapped his knuckles against it several times in a rhythmic manner, making it clear he was human. After a few moments, it raised up, revealing the entirety of the grocery store crew. Gail, the manager, stood in the middle, smiling at the sight of them. Her expression was one of genuine relief and happiness, overwhelmed to see something other than the shambling dead outside the store. "So you came back?" Gail asked. "Those tacos were too good to not come back," Bowman said. Both of them laughed a bit before Dawson stepped up, the 19-year-old bagger speaking for his younger co-workers. His face showed the strain of the past few days, but there was hope in his eyes now that rescue seemed within reach. "Officer, is it safe out there?" Dawson asked. "Almost, son. We got the parking lot clear and we're making good progress cleaning up the streets," Bowman said. "Well, the thing is, a few of us have family we haven't seen since this started, and we'd really like to check in on them," Dawson said. Bowman could hear the emotion in the young man's voice, softening him up a bit. "It's not going to be too much longer, I promise," Bowman said. Dawson looked disappointed, even if he understood. Bowman could see the expressions on everyone's faces, sharing their leader's disappointment. The weight of separation from family was taking its toll on all of them. "I tell you what, write down their addresses and my friend and I will ride out and check on them. We'll let them know you're safe and we'll have you home in another day or so," Bowman said. Dawson's eyes lit up, as did the others, as he ran off to the office to get a pen and paper. The simple gesture meant more to them than Bowman could have imagined. The possibility of news about their families was worth more than any treasure. Gail let out a soft smile, putting her finger up in the air. "That's kind of you, officer, but I'm going to need you to wait here for a minute," Gail said. "I don't mind waiting, even if I am curious as to what it's for," Bowman said. "Well, officer, it's going to take me a minute to warm up some lunch for you and your friend here," Gail said. Bowman let out a smile, watching as Gail walked away. Jackson playfully smacked the officer on the arm, unable to resist making another observation about the situation. "If I didn't know better, I'd swear she was into you," Jackson said. "You sound surprised," Bowman said. "I've spent the better part of a week with you and never once have I considered making you food," Jackson said. Bowman let out a laugh and a sigh of relief as, for the first time since everything began, it truly felt like they were going to be all right. Chapter 7. 4 days later, Officer Bowman sat on a 2-person swing that was connected to the ceiling of a carport. The cool afternoon breeze washed over him, drying the sweat on his brow. His uniform was stained with dirt and blood, testament to the grueling work they'd been doing since their successful assault began. His muscles ached from the back-breaking work of clearing the homes on Bodie Island of zombies. While most of the structures were empty, they still needed to be methodically cleared, since one wrong move would result in certain death. Every door had to be opened cautiously, every room searched thoroughly, every closet and garage explored with weapons at the ready. The process had been exhausting both physically and mentally. The constant vigilance required to stay alive, combined with the physical demands of breaking down doors and wrestling with riot shields, had pushed everyone to their limits. But they'd persevered, driven by the knowledge that their survival depended on complete thoroughness. "Are you ready to finish this, Bowman?" Jackson asked. The officer let out a sigh, forcing his exhausted body into movement. The younger, more in shape Jackson lent a hand, helping him back to his feet. Bowman groaned as he reached down and grabbed the riot shield by his feet. The protective barrier had become an extension of his arm over the past few days, battered and scarred from countless encounters. "Yeah, come on, let's get this last one done," Bowman said. Jackson patted his friend on the shoulder as they walked over to the entrance to the house. Bowman took point, getting the riot shield into position. He looked through the clear plastic at the top, which was stained with all manner of blood and brain. The once transparent viewing window had become a grisly mosaic of their recent battles. Jackson grabbed a sledgehammer that he had set beside the door for when they were ready. With a forceful swing, he knocked the door free from its frame. The wood splintered and gave way, revealing the darkened interior of what had once been someone's home. Bowman immediately rushed forward, pushing the shield into the entryway, standing fast. The sounds of excited moans and shuffling of feet came from the floor above. The noise echoed through the empty house, bouncing off walls and creating an eerie symphony of the undead. Both men waited patiently as the creatures made their way to the stairs. They stifled a laugh when the zombies tripped over their own feet, tumbling down the stairs, landing on the ground floor in a tangled mess of limbs. Bowman darted forward, placing the shield on top of them and holding the creatures in place. The zombies thrashed beneath the protective barrier, struggling in vain to reach their meal. He struggled a bit as they thrashed about, but they posed little threat. Jackson stepped up, brandishing a small fishing spear. With 2 decisive jabs to the head, the creatures fell quiet. The sharp point found its mark easily, ending their unlife with clinical efficiency. "Do you think that's the last of them?" Jackson asked. Bowman shrugged before letting out a loud 2-finger whistle. A moment later, they heard one more set of footsteps above. It lingered in place for several moments, as if it was hung up on something. Bowman let out a defeated sigh, shaking his head, knowing he had to climb the stairs. "Yeah, that figures. Come on," Bowman said. Despite the perceived lack of a true threat, Bowman moved as if it was a life-threatening situation. He kept the shield at the ready as the duo moved up the stairs, quickly reaching the top. The noise came from their right, down the hallway. They turned and lowered their guard a bit when they saw an older, zombified man that had become caught up on a door, his belt somehow looped onto the knob. The creature was trapped, unable to move forward or backward, creating the shuffling sound they'd heard. Jackson let out a chuckle as he casually walked down the hallway to deliver the kill shot. The tip of the spear went right through the eye with ease, dropping it. The zombies' struggles ceased immediately, leaving only silence in the house. Both men remained silent for several moments, listening intently for more noise but hearing nothing. The house had finally fallen quiet. No more moaning or shuffling to indicate additional threats. "Is that really it?" Jackson asked. "I think it is," Bowman replied. Bowman and Jackson delivered a fist bump to one another before walking out onto the patio overlooking the street. They looked around at the houses, the only movement coming from the other clear teams that were systematically clearing out the buildings. It had been grueling, but they had managed to clear every building on the island of threats. No room unchecked. No zombie left standing. The accomplishment was monumental. They had reclaimed their home from the undead, house by house, room by room. "This is a hell of a thing we've done, Bowman," Jackson said. "It still hasn't really sunk in yet," Bowman replied. It will, Jackson said. "I have no doubt, especially when we sit down and start trying to figure out what we need to do in order to keep everybody fed," Bowman said. "That's tomorrow's problem," Jackson said. Bowman let out a chuckle, hoping that his friend was right. That hope quickly faded as a truck pulled up, stopping in front of the house. "Looks like you spoke too soon," Bowman said. Linda jumped out of the driver's seat, looking up at the officer, giving him a wave. Her expression was urgent, but not panicked, suggesting important business rather than an emergency. "There you are, Bowman. Are you wrapped up yet?" Linda called out. "Yeah, we just cleared the last house," Bowman replied. "Come on, I'll give you a ride back to Avon. Henry wants to talk to you," Linda said. Bowman let out a weary sigh, but Jackson gave him a pat on the back to let him know it was all right. "Go ahead. I'll get one of the others to help me drag the bodies down," Jackson said. "Are you sure?" Bowman asked. "Well, mostly sure. You should probably take off before I have a change of heart," Jackson said. Bowman let out a chuckle as he walked back down the stairs and out to the truck. He tossed the riot shield into the back before getting in, his muscles finally relaxing. Linda reached down and turned on the air conditioning, blasting his face with cool air. The sudden rush of cold was a luxury he'd almost forgotten existed, a small comfort that felt impossibly precious after days of hard labor. "Just sit back and relax, Bowman. I'll let you know when we're back in Avon," Linda said. Bowman mumbled some words, but the softness of the seat, combined with the cool air and his extreme exhaustion, knocked him out. By the time Linda drove them to the highway, he was unconscious. The stress and physical demands of the past week finally caught up with him. It took nearly half an hour for Linda to drive through Bodie Island, but unlike before, this was a peaceful drive. She looked around, watching teams of people moving about, doing inventory of the buildings and cleaning up the mess. It was a process that was going to take weeks, especially given their limited manpower, but it needed to be done. Linda pulled into the driveway of a large house just off the highway that they had begun using as a command center. As she cut off the truck, she gently jostled the officer away. Yeah, I'm up," Bowman said. Bowman looked around for a moment, struggling to comprehend that they were there already. The nap had been deeper than he'd realized, and disorientation clouded his thoughts. "My God, Linda, how fast were you driving?" Bowman asked. Linda let out a laugh as she got out of the truck. "Come on, Bowman. I'll get some coffee going while you talk to Henry," Linda said. Bowman nodded as he got out of the truck, stretching his tired muscles before following Linda into the house. As soon as he crossed the threshold, Henry called out from the front room. "Hey, Bowman, come on in. I got some exciting news," Henry said. Bowman shambled into the front room, stopping at the entrance to see 2 white boards pinned to the wall, filled with information. Food, medicine, weapons, all the key items that their community would need in the coming weeks and months. The organization was impressive, with color-coded categories and detailed inventories. "Wow, you've been busy," Bowman said. "Yeah. Linda and I have been working non-stop, even sleeping in shifts to make sure we're not missing anything," Henry said. Linda walked in, leaning against the wall and chiming in. "We have a search grid with teams cataloging everything. We made sure to hit the major stores first and to get the perishable food ready to prepare first," Linda said. "So in other words, get ready to eat steak for the next week," Henry said. "What about freezing it? Or, damn," Bowman said. Bowman had a thought and immediately killed it in his own mind as he contemplated on it. "You're worried about the power getting knocked out, aren't you?" Henry asked. "Yep, it doesn't do us much good to freeze it if the freezers don't stay cold," Bowman said. "Well, Bowman, we thought about that too, which is why I have a group taking stock of our solar capabilities," Linda said. "There's a reason you're in charge of this and not me," Bowman said. "It's not going to be enough to power the entire island, but we're going to be better off than a lot of people out there are," Linda said. "You've talked to others?" Bowman asked. Linda gave a solemn nod before looking over to Henry, letting him take over. The change in their expressions suggested the news wasn't going to be good. "Yeah, we have a radio room upstairs. We have a couple of ham radios going and have made contact with a few people out there," Henry said. "How bad is it?" Bowman asked. Henry and Linda exchanged a worried glance, neither one wanting to break it to Bowman. The weight of whatever they'd learned was clearly affecting both of them. "Well, how bad is it?" Bowman pressed. The military pulled back from all of their bases. "Rumor has it they're regrouping in Kansas," Henry said. "That's less than ideal," Bowman said. "It gets worse. Whatever this virus is, it hit everywhere without warning. Big cities like New York are decimated, Linda said. Jesus Christ, Bowman said. So, yeah, looks like we're going to be on our own for a while, Henry said. Bowman walked over to the white boards, giving them a once-over, paying special attention to the food situation. Do you have a head count on survivors yet? Bowman asked. We're pushing 1,000, but I don't expect it to go much higher than that, Linda said. My God, that's all that survived? Bowman asked. I'm afraid so. Most of them are local, but a handful are tourists. We haven't told them about the rest of the country, Henry said. We'll have a community meeting about it eventually. Right now, though, we need to worry about these numbers, because 1,000 people is a beast to feed, Bowman said. Linda and Henry shared a knowing look, silently offering the other the opportunity to share. Bowman caught on and spoke up. Does someone want to clue me in, or should I leave so you two can make out? Bowman said. Both Henry and Linda let out a laugh as Linda motioned for Bowman to follow. Come on, I got something to show you, Linda said. The three of them walked into the next room where Linda had a computer set up. She clicked on a video file, and it was of a handheld camera walking through a darkened area. What am I looking at? Bowman asked. It takes it a minute before they find the light, but do you remember that giant cargo ship trapped just offshore? Linda asked. Yeah, this is it? Bowman asked. This is. We sent a team out there yesterday to check it out. They cleared it out pretty easily and started filming just so we could get an idea of what was in there, Linda said. On screen, a light clicked on, revealing rows and rows of boxes and containers. The scale was impressive. The cargo hold stretched far beyond what the camera could capture in a single frame. The volume was turned off, but they could still see what they were seeing as they opened one of the containers. Inside were hundreds of boxes of shelf-stable food, pasta, rice, soup. Oh, that's a beautiful sight, Bowman said. The camera turned around to reveal a pallet filled with building material. The next one had boxes of winter clothes. Bowman stood up after a few moments, seeing enough. I want that inventoried as soon as possible, Bowman said. I have a team over there right now, hoping to have a preliminary report this evening, Linda said. You know what this means, don't you? Bowman asked. I'm pretty sure I know, but I'll let you tell us, Henry said. That even though we've been abandoned and left on our own, we're going to be all right, Bowman said. The three of them took a moment to bask in those words. The last week had been a terrifying ordeal to survive. But they had come out the other side in one piece. Now the hard part began, rebuilding their community to be self-sustaining. Despite the arduous task ahead, they were optimistic about their future in this new undead world. The end.